Kansas time. You sat at the dining room table in Mankato, Kansas, population 1,300, give or take a few, sometime in the late 1950s. You tried to sit with your back straight. Your mother did not have a slouch for a son. The town bell had just rung. Time for the noon meal. The biggest, most punctual of the day in Kansas time. Your mother and grandmother brought on the dinner. Roast beef, mashed potatoes, gravy, perhaps a vegetable. The beverage was water for adults, milk for kids. The dining room, with its table covered in an embroidered white cloth, was adjacent to the living room, which had a well-kept grand piano in the southwest corner, where on the wall was a thermometer that your granddad read every day for the indoor temperature, which he often recited after the noon blessing. No one played the piano anymore, but you had the feeling folks had long ago, at birthday parties, or accompanying the singing of Christmas carols, maybe even recitals for the town's gifted young pianists. Maybe your mother's boy cousin played a tune or two before he was hurled mysteriously under the wheel of a large truck while riding his bike. Instant death, age 13. Your mother's first sweetheart. Staffords don't cry, her grandfather scolded her at the funeral. You sometimes almost heard the music come from that piano as you tried to sleep at night in the upstairs room where you stayed. It was joyful music. It was melancholy music. You wanted to walk downstairs and play the keys, but it was bedtime, so you heard the melodies in your mind where they stayed. Your sister sat across from you. She had long, beautiful brunette hair with red highlights, just like the long, thick braids grandmother, now white-haired, had cut and saved in a special wooden box of her own hair when she was young, that she once carefully removed and showed you and your sister with wistful pride. Your sister's hair shone when the Kansas sunlight touched it as she ran through your grandparents' yard, playing tag. Or in moonlight across the street in the vacant field at night, catching fireflies near the tiny hut where the old, strange man lived, who covered his entire dwelling with car license plates from states throughout the nation. You wondered how he got them. There were usually vegetables at the noon meal. Your grandmother read the nutrition tips in the county newspaper. Maybe corn on the cob, maybe green beans boiled unseasoned. But vegetables weren't what delighted you. It was the roast beef, medium well done, potatoes mashed that day into a firm yet puffy texture, rich gravy, brown, thick, but not lumpy. You ate the food and you ate it slowly, savoring your grandmother's kindness and salty smell, a trusted companion in Kansas time. Your granddad sat at the head of the table. He always said, "Dear Lord, bless this food to the nourishment of our bodies, that we may better learn to serve thee." That was his blessing. It was always the same. Granddad carved the roast beef slowly, skillfully. You especially liked the end piece. It was dark and had a rich taste like the drippings grandmother used, along with water and flour, to make the gravy. Sometimes grandmother treated you to the extra drippings, loading them on a spoon for you to lick. You loved them like you loved her, with your open, unlined heart. Your granddad knew you liked the end piece, and he often gave it to you, but you no longer asked. You'd learned your chances were better if you waited, patient, silent, confident of his generosity. Your mother, blonde and pretty like the girls on the covers of the movie mags you saw next to the Superman and Archie comics at the corner Rexall drugstore, sat next to you. You hoped her mood was good. And your daddy sat across from you, next to your sister, his black hair and probing brown eyes. How he threw and hit a baseball across that abandoned field, just wanting everyone to get along. And then the pies came out, apple, cherry, blueberry, sweet yet tart with crust that crumbled and melted to the bite. Pie time made it quiet, and you liked the quiet. Your grandparents did not have color TV, a microwave oven, a wireless phone, or psychotherapy. And once, a few years later, you asked your grandmother why the president was shot. And she said, because they have no God. And you asked, how do you know that? And she said, age changes you in Kansas time.